Hello guys. Tonight, let's wander back into the past. A quiet, distant past, heavy with memory, and whispered with the voices of those who were once very small in a very dark time. Before we begin, I'd love to know where and when you're listening. Leave a comment below with your time and location. It's always comforting to see the peaceful pockets where we meet, together in the stillness of night. Now, find your most comfortable position. Sink into the warmth of your blanket. Let your muscles soften, your breath deepen, your eyes grow heavier. This is your time to rest. And listen. Let us drift into a story that was once real, a story that belonged to many children. Quiet stories, spoken in soft voices. This is what it was like to be a child during the Holocaust. You're 7 years old, and you live in a small, quiet street in Warsaw, Poland. The year is 1938. The cobblestones outside your family's flat are uneven and cold in the morning, but you love the sound your boots make when you walk across them. Your street is filled with colour and familiar smells. Black bread from the bakery across the way, boiled cabbage from your neighbour's kitchen. The air is often sharp, tinged with coal smoke and the promise of winter, but there's warmth here too. A life held together with routine and the closeness of family. Your mother rises early to braid your hair or tuck your shirt just so, and your father always hums as he reads the newspaper by the window. You don't yet understand the headlines, only the furrow in his brow, the way he stops humming some mornings, but you're more concerned with the school bell, with the marble in your pocket, and with the little dog that follows the bakery boy on his rounds. Your world is small, but it's full. You speak Yiddish at home, Polish at school, and sometimes you whisper German words with your older cousin when she pretends to be fancy. You love the feel of language on your tongue. You collect words like they are pebbles, smooth and weighty in your hands. On Saturdays, after synagogue, your father walks you down to the park, his hand large and dry around yours. He speaks slowly, always with care. He points to trees, statues, pigeons with puffed up chests, and tells you how old they are, how long they've been watching the world change. You listen, but mostly you like how quiet his voice is when he speaks to you like this. You're not yet afraid, but the world is beginning to change. There are whispers now, on the stairs at night. Your mother and aunt speak in low voices after dinner. You're sent to bed early more often. You don't yet know the word ghetto, but you've heard it spoken with a kind of sharpness that sticks in your memory. One morning the baker's window is smashed. The dog doesn't come anymore, and the bakery boy, he is gone too. No one tells you where. Your teacher no longer says your name in the morning roll call. She skips over it, and your desk becomes more and more empty. At synagogue the crowd thins. You begin to understand the word different, though no one says it directly. There are places you're not welcome anymore, parks you're told not to go to. The man at the market who used to sneak you a slice of apple now looks through you like you're a ghost. You don't understand why. You're still the same. Your boots still clack on the stones. Your mother still braids your hair. But something invisible seems to follow you now, heavy like a coat you cannot take off. You notice the way your father stands at the window longer in the mornings, the newspaper unopened on the table. Then come the signs. Juden verboten, Jews forbidden. They appear quietly at first, in the windows of restaurants and shops. Your friend's father's hat store, the one with the brass bell and warm wood walls, is shuttered one day. You press your nose to the glass, but the bell no longer rings. Your mother tells you it's just for a little while, that it's only precaution, that it will all go back to normal, but in your chest, something stirs. A quiet knowing that childhood is slipping, grain by grain, like sand from your cupped hands. You begin to hear the word Germany with dread. Once it was just a faraway country, now it feels like a storm cloud, one that creeps closer each day. On the radio, there is a voice, loud, sharp, angry. You don't understand his words, but you remember the sound. It buzzes in your ears long after the dial is turned. The street is quieter now. Children you once knew no longer play. The school bell rings for others, but not for you. You ask your mother if you can still go to the park. Her lips press together. No. You begin to dream of closed doors, and so you stay inside. You and your cousin invent games from shadows and silence. You make dolls out of rags. You draw windows onto the wall with a pencil, pretending you can still see the tree-lined square where pigeons once danced. Your father says you must be brave, that things are only changing, not ending, but you know something has ended already. You can feel it in the way the light falls different on your pillow, in the way silence has begun to feel heavy, not peaceful. You're only 7, and the sky's beginning to fall, but still, each night, your mother tucks you in. She presses her lips to your forehead and whispers a prayer. Her voice is soft but firm. You hold her hand, and for now, you believe her when she says, "Sleep, child, you're safe, just for tonight." The first time you see the wall going up, it doesn't seem like something final. At first, it looks like any other construction. Men in coats stacking bricks, the clink of mortar, voices in the early fog. You watch from the window with your cheek pressed to the glass and your breath clouding the corner of the pane. Your cousin leans beside you, and neither of you speaks. You don't understand what it means, but you understand that it's happening around your neighbourhood, and not around others. You understand that it marks something, that it divides. Your street grows quieter again. The normal rhythms are suspended, as if someone somewhere has pressed pause on the world. Shops once open all day now shutter themselves by noon, or not at all. The tall man who lived in the corner flat, the one who always tipped his hat to your mother, hasn't been seen in days. His curtains are closed, a heavy velvet red that never moves. Your father has stopped reading the newspaper. Now it sits on the table like an unwanted guest. He still opens it sometimes, but he no longer hums. And when you ask questions, he gives you answers like someone winding up an old clock. Mechanical, careful, watching for the moment when something inside might snap. The wall grows higher. It loops around blocks you once walked freely. You don't know the words segregated zone or ghetto Litzmannstadt yet, but the concept is becoming real in your bones. You see it in the way strangers avoid your gaze, in the way your mother clutches your arm a little tighter when you walk to the ration queue. You begin to learn that shrinking yourself small is not just a game, but something necessary. One day, a family appears in your flat, a couple and their baby, quiet, pale, strangers to you. They move into the back room with just a suitcase and a wrapped bundle of blankets. Your mother tells you to give up your cot. You don't argue. The baby cries through the night, thin and reedy like a bird. Your cousin whispers that this is happening everywhere now, that more and more people are being squeezed into less and less space. No one has privacy. No one speaks loudly anymore. Even the floorboards try not to creak. The ration lines grow longer. You stand with your mother for hours, sometimes with snow settling into your shoes, your toes going numb. You press your hand into hers and listen to the quiet murmurs around you. Fragments of stories about disappearances, about families no one can reach anymore, about names removed from doors. The bread you receive is coarse and grey. There are days when there is no bread at all. Your father gives you his portion some nights, breaking it and handing it to you without looking up. School is gone now. Not just closed, vanished. The building is still there, of course, but the windows are dark and the doors chained. One of the older children from your block gathers the younger ones in the cellar once a week, drawing letters on the dusty floor with a stick. It's cold there, and you shiver the entire time, but you keep going because the sound of words still feels like something alive. The adults begin to whisper about transports. You hear the word again and again, like a shadow trailing the ends of conversations. Your aunt refuses to speak of it. One night she comes home from the labour yard with her coat torn and a bruise spreading across her face, and no one asks her why. She sits at the table without removing her scarf and stares at nothing. You watch your mother boil potato peels into a thin soup and pretend not to see the way her hands shake as she ladles it into bowls. Then come the lists. Men in uniforms begin posting notices, yellow and brittle against the dark brick walls. Names, addresses, instructions. People begin to carry papers always, folded and pressed against their chests as if the thin slips might protect them. You ask your father if you'll ever need one too, and he only says, "Soon, maybe. I hope not." Children begin to vanish. At first it's subtle. You notice an empty spot in the queue, a name that's no longer shouted across the yard, a window without the usual face watching from behind the curtain. Your cousin begins to keep a list of names in a small torn notebook, drawing a line through each child who goes missing. You hate that list. You wish she'd burn it, but she keeps it hidden beneath the mattress, as if keeping count will make it stop, and still the wall grows taller. You dream sometimes of climbing it, of reaching the other side where streetcars still run, and bread is fresh and faces are not afraid to smile. But your dreams are fragile. They disappear when the morning cold seeps through the cracks in the plaster and wakes you before the sun. Each day, your mother tightens her belt one notch more. Each night, your father checks the seams of the windows and doors as though he expects someone to come knocking in the dark. When you play with your cousin now, it is only inside, with whispers. You draw maps of imaginary cities where no one is hungry, and no walls are ever built. You name the streets after people who are gone. You're still a child, but the world you knew is gone, and the wall is still not finished. You wake early to the sound of boots outside the window, a dull rhythmic thud that echoes through the narrow courtyard like a clock you've never wound. For a long moment you stay still, breath caught in your chest, listening to the muffled bark of voices you don't recognise. They speak in short, harsh syllables. German, you think, though you've only heard it in pieces until now, trailing behind the radio or leaking through cracks in the wall. This morning, it's closer. Your mother is already dressed. She sits at the table, a scarf tied around her head, the corners of her lips pulled tight. She doesn't speak to you, doesn't tell you to dress, just gestures once at the coat by the door and the boots she's already placed beside your bed. Her eyes flick briefly to the window and then away again. Outside, a line has formed. People are gathered without speaking, some still fastening buttons, others holding crumpled pieces of paper or scraps of linen pressed over their mouths. Your cousin grabs your hand tighter than usual. You don't ask why. No one needs to say it. The air smells of wet ash and something metallic. You stand near the base of the stairwell while a soldier, a tall man with a face that might have once been young, calls names from a list. One by one, families step forward. They show documents, yellow cards, identity slips stamped and signed. The soldier looks, nods, writes something and waves them on. You're jostled from behind. Someone whispers your father's name, incorrectly, harsh and shortened, and he steps forward. His coat is thin, too thin for this kind of morning, and his papers are creased from the fold in his pocket. The soldier takes them. He looks down for a long time, then back at your father, then down again. You watch a small muscle twitch just under your father's eye. You know that twitch. It comes when he's thinking quickly, when he's about to say something careful. The soldier asks a question, low, in German. Your father replies quietly, in an accent you've never heard him use before. For a second the world holds its breath, then the soldier stamps the paper. Next, your family moves forward. Your mother's hand never leaves your shoulder the entire time. She's silent until you reach the courtyard again. Then, under her breath, she says something in Yiddish. Just 3 words. Not for you. For the sky, maybe. Or for someone who didn't make it through. Back inside, the flat feels colder than usual. The baby in the back room is gone. So is the couple. No one says where they went or if they left anything behind. Only the cot remains, made up neatly, as though they expected to return. Later that day, you learn what the stamp means. It's permission to stay, for now. It means your father has been assigned to a work detail, and because of that, the family is allowed to remain in the building, for now. That phrase becomes a kind of chorus in the days that follow. Everything is conditional, everything is temporary. Even the way your name sounds when it's spoken has begun to feel borrowed, like it might be taken away if someone decides it no longer fits. Your father leaves each morning before dawn and returns long after dark. His hands are cracked and bleeding, his voice hoarse from dust. He says little, eats less, and lies awake long after the rest of you have closed your eyes. Some nights you hear him speaking quietly to your mother. Fragments about bricks, carts, the weight of stones, the men who couldn't lift them. You try to stay quiet, invisible. You fold rags, peel potatoes, sweep dust into corners that never seem clean. Your cousin teaches you how to mend socks using a spoon and string. You're not good at it, but you try. It's something to do, something to hold. One day, your name is not on the list, not for transport, not for food, not for anything. Your mother clutches the paper so hard it tears. She walks to the office herself, stands in the rain, returns with nothing but a blank stare and hands stained with ink. That night, your father draws a false line across a spare page and writes your name in careful letters. He tucks it between 2 others in a stack by the stove. If they look quickly, he says, they won't notice. You don't ask what happens if they look slowly. The streets are emptier now. The wall is finished. The last bricks went up with no ceremony, no announcement, just a final clang and the scrape of mortar drying in the cold. The view beyond is gone. No more trolleys. No more of the big clock tower on Aleje Jerozolimsky. Now, only bricks and barbed wire. Inside the ghetto, space shrinks. More families arrive. Rooms divide. A woman and 2 sons now sleep in the kitchen corner. The older boy snores and cries in his sleep. He's your age, but he doesn't speak to you. His eyes are too tired. You try to offer him a slice of turnip once, but he only stares at it, then away. Every day, new rules. No radios, no candles after dark, no paper without stamps, no trading, no bartering, no complaints. One afternoon your cousin comes running down the hallway, her notebook clutched in one hand. She doesn't speak until she's pulled you behind the stairwell, pressed her back to the wall. A boy from school was caught with bread. He's gone now. His mother was taken too. She says this in one long breath, as if saying it quickly might undo it, but it doesn't. That evening she draws a line through 2 more names. The stove has no wood, but your father breaks apart an old chair. He says it creaked too much anyway. The fire burns high for a while, and you all sit around it, watching the way the light flickers across the peeling wallpaper. For a moment you pretend it's just a winter's night, that tomorrow you'll go to school, that your coat isn't too small and your shoes aren't falling apart and no one you know has disappeared. For a moment you imagine you are safe, but the fire burns out quickly, and the papers are still on the table, and the names on the list are still changing. You learn the new currency of the ghetto quickly. It is not coins, and it is not notes. It is bread, paper, cloth, soap, string, potatoes with dirt still clinging to the skin, boots with soles that have not yet worn through. Everything that can be traded is traded. But what is most valuable now is information. True or false makes little difference. The whisper of news is often all people have to cling to. Your mother sends you out with a square of cloth one morning. It's soft, and you remember it used to be part of a curtain. She presses it into your hands like it's something sacred and tells you to find onions. 1, maybe 2. You ask where. She doesn't answer. She just says, ask near the bathhouse. So you walk, slowly, keeping to the walls, keeping your eyes down like she taught you. There are no signs for anything anymore, just people, grey and bent and cold, standing or walking or sitting in silence. They don't speak unless spoken to. You move through them like mist. You find a boy leaning against a post, his hands in his pockets. His shoes are too big. He's older than you, maybe 13 or so. And when you hold out your cloth, he barely glances at it. But he nods once, and from under his coat he pulls a handful of wilted greens. Not onions, but close enough. You take them and pass him the cloth. He's already turned away before you can say thank you. When you bring the greens home, your mother cries just for a moment. She hides it quickly, but you saw it. That night she boils them with a single potato someone had saved for 2 days. The water tastes like something green and far away. Your cousin closes her eyes when she drinks it. You pretend it's soup from before, thick with barley and carrots and the good salt. There is a new boy in your building, the nephew of a man on the ground floor. He's clever with his hands and folds paper into birds and boxes and little hats. He gives you one, a star with edges like points of light. You keep it in the lining of your coat. It makes no sense to carry something so useless, but it reminds you of how things used to feel. Light, pointless, beautiful. The snow falls heavy now, burying the streets in silence. You watch it from the attic window, breath fogging the glass, eyes searching the rooftops as if someone might be walking there. Sometimes, you imagine the snow is erasing the city layer by layer, until all the barbed wire and notices and patrols are hidden, and all that remains is quiet. But the snow doesn't erase, it only adds weight. Children begin to disappear faster. No one says the word roundup, not to your face, but you hear it in the way mothers start checking windows twice before letting their children step outside. In the way footsteps echo too long in the stairwell. In the way your cousin stops going out for her messages. The Judenrat has posted new lists, names, ages, addresses. Your family is not on them, this time, but your neighbour is, the one with the cello and the son who can't walk. They are gone by morning. Your father starts sleeping in his coat. He hides a small bundle of papers under the floorboards and tells you never to mention them. You don't ask what's in them. You already know. Names, passes, food vouchers, letters from people who no longer have addresses. Sometimes he brings out one of the letters and reads it in silence. Then he puts it back. His eyes always look far away afterward, as if the letter is a doorway and he wants to step through. The boy who made you the paper star dies of pneumonia. No one comes for the body for 2 days. You hear his uncle crying through the floor. You don't go to see. You sit on your bed and unfold the paper star, carefully, slowly. Then you fold it again. Your mother begins to teach you how to barter. She shows you how to speak without sounding desperate, how to ask without begging. She teaches you which corners have the most movement, which guards look the other way. She tells you that if anything happens, if you're separated, find the woman with the black coat near the soup kitchen. You memorize this, though you don't want to. The woman's name is Roja. She wears a pin in her hat and smells like cloves. You see her sometimes and wonder if she knows she's your safety plan. Every few nights, you hear gunfire in the distance. One crack, then silence, then another. Sometimes you think it's your imagination, but then others look up too and you know it was real. No one speaks afterward. The silence is respect, or fear, or both. You're growing thinner. You can count your ribs now without pressing hard. Your shoes are lined with paper to keep the cold out. You wrap rags around your hands when you go outside. You no longer remember what your voice sounded like when it was loud. You start writing stories in your head, not on paper. There is none left for such things. But in your mind you build small worlds. In them there are houses made of warm bread and fields of golden light. You name the characters after people you've known, even the ones who've gone. You let them speak to each other. You give them endings, happy ones. You're careful not to tell anyone. These stories are yours, and in the ghetto, everything you can keep for yourself is a kind of survival. Sometimes in the middle of the night your mother hums. It's not a song you know, and it's barely a sound, just breath with memory in it. You pretend to sleep, but you listen. The sound is soft and endless, like water under a door. It means she's still here, that you're still here. You don't know how many days have passed since the wall was sealed. You lost count after 70. The scratches on the cupboard have blurred with soot. But you keep remembering, because memory is a form of resistance too. You're still a child. But in the ghetto, childhood is not a pause between things. It is something you carry, quietly, beneath the hunger and the silence and the fear. The first time you hear the word deportation, it means nothing. It's just a sound, long, cold, foreign, floating between the walls, whispered between adults like smoke rising through cracks. But you start to understand what it means by what happens after it's said. It always follows a knock, a list, a name. The girl who lived upstairs, Mira with the ribbon always tied too tight, her name was on one. Her mother's too. One morning they were there, and by afternoon their door was swinging open, the hinge loose, the room empty. You ask where they went, and your cousin says, "The station," in a voice that folds at the corners, the Umschlagplatz. You hear that name again and again. It doesn't appear on paper, but it's passed from mouth to mouth like something fragile and dirty, something that shouldn't be said but must be. You've never been there, to the edge of the ghetto where the trains wait, but you begin to see it in your dreams. Endless grey platforms, soot-streaked cars, a whistle that never stops, people standing in neat rows, coats buttoned, eyes blank, no luggage, no goodbyes. A rumour spreads. Those taken are going to work in the east, to farms, to factories, to new places with roofs and beds and food. No one quite believes it. Not really. But pretending is easier than silence. You overhear your mother telling your father that some people have paid to be on the list, that others have paid even more to be left off. Your father says nothing in reply, just keeps looking at the floor as though the boards might offer a better answer than words ever could. One evening you return from the soup queue to find the flat in disarray. Papers thrown from drawers, blankets lifted, mattresses sliced open. 2 men had come, your cousin says. They didn't wear uniforms, but everyone knew who they were. They didn't take anything, just looked. Left the front door half open behind them like a challenge. Your mother tries to smile, to say it's over. It's nothing, but she doesn't make tea that night. She sits by the stove with a spoon in her lap, unmoving, as if waiting for something else to happen. You and your cousin sit on the floor and play a quiet game with buttons. You line them up like trains, one after the other, forward, always forward. The streets feel watched now. There are fewer patrols than before, but more fear. People keep their heads down, speak less. Some begin wearing extra clothes under their coats, preparing in case the order comes suddenly. You hear that a family from the next block jumped from a second-floor window rather than be taken. You ask your cousin if it's true. She doesn't answer. You begin to notice things. Which doors are marked, which windows stay dark, who walks fast and who walks slow, the smell of burning cloth that clings to the wind. A poster appears overnight. Volunteers for resettlement. A man reads it aloud in the street. His voice is tired. No one responds. The poster is torn down by morning. Your mother's brother sends a note. A piece of torn envelope passed through 3 hands. He's hiding in a basement near the edge of the ghetto. You're not to tell anyone. He says there's talk of a way out through the sewers, that someone knows someone who can lead people through, but it costs more than your family has, and even then, there's no promise, only risk, only silence. You ask your father if he believes any of it. He doesn't look up. He just folds the paper again and hides it beneath the loose floorboard under the stove. A week later, a neighbour you haven't seen in months knocks softly at the door. She looks thinner than you remember, eyes hollow, scarf wrapped high over her chin. She says the roundups are happening again, whole families taken at night, that there's a new list, not posted, that your family might be on it. She says it like she's saying the weather, like it's something expected. Then she leaves. You don't sleep that night. Your mother pulls you into bed beside her, her arm around your ribs like she's trying to press you back into her body. Your father sleeps in a chair, fully dressed. Your cousin lies awake staring at the ceiling, one hand on the notebook under her pillow. She doesn't draw the names anymore. There are too many. She just writes dates. Then it happens. A pounding on the door at dawn. Your father opens it, a man in a cap with a clipboard. He reads a name. Yours, your mother's, the cousin, not your father. Your father steps forward, shows his paper, his work pass. It's stamped. It means nothing. They say you're to report. No time to pack. Just coats. No more than you can carry in your hands, your mother argues. Your cousin grabs your scarf. Your knees feel weak. You don't speak. You don't cry. The man waits, writing something. Then he gestures. Now. You leave the building in a line of neighbours, eyes wide and stunned. Some cry. Some stare straight ahead. The street is slick with ice. The guards herd you like sheep, whispering and shoving but not shouting. You see someone fall. No one stops. The walk to the Umschlagplatz is longer than you expected. The streets twist and bend. At every corner you hope to turn back. At every step you wait for something to change. But the line keeps moving. You see the station before you hear it. Trains. Not like the ones you used to watch from bridges, long and gleaming, filled with windows and people. These are freight cars. Box cars. No markings. No light. You reach the platform. Your cousin holds your hand. Your mother keeps whispering your name, over and over, like a prayer, like a spell to keep you present. Then the whistle sounds, and everything starts to blur. The moment you step inside the boxcar, your world becomes wood, and bodies, and breath. It is darker than you imagined, darker than a cupboard, darker than the long hallway at night when the lamps have all gone out. The walls are wooden slats, but they're sealed too tightly for light to leak in. Only the faintest outline of morning glows through the top crack, a pale reminder that somewhere beyond this the sun still exists. You are pressed in from every side. Your mother's hand is around your shoulder, but already it's slipping. There are too many people and no room to move, no space to breathe properly. Someone is crying, a child maybe 2 years old. Someone else is whispering a prayer. You think it's Hebrew, or maybe just broken Polish recited too fast, too quietly to catch. The car is meant for cattle. You realise that quickly. You've never seen one before, but now that you're inside it is unmistakable. There are hooks in the walls, straw underfoot, no windows, no benches. The door slams shut behind you like the sound of a book closing, and the metal bolt echoes like thunder. Then silence, brief, almost holy. Then the groan of wheels. Movement. The floor beneath you lurches, and your knees nearly give. The others sway. A man shouts to hold on, but there's nothing to hold, only each other. It smells of sweat, of earth, of fear. A slow, rising scent that clings to the fabric of every coat and sleeve. and you realise too late that there is no bucket, no corner for waste, no place for dignity. The train moves for hours, then it stops, then it moves again. Time begins to unspool, to melt at the edges. You try to count minutes, then try to count breaths, then give up. Someone near the wall begins to cough, a deep, wet sound. They try to smother it. Someone else knocks on the wall and shouts something. The train does not stop. Your cousin is to your right. You don't remember when she stopped speaking, but her eyes are closed now, and she leans her head against your shoulder. Your mother wraps her scarf around all three of you, like a net trying to hold in the last scraps of warmth. You don't speak either. There's nothing to say. People begin to sit, crouch really, wherever space allows. There are too many of you for everyone to do it at once, so some stay standing, shifting with the sway of the train. You end up kneeling. Your legs go numb. The straw beneath you turns sour, damp. A child somewhere screams. Someone tries to soothe them, but the words are too dry. You dream with your eyes open. Not dreams, really. Memories. The sound of your school bell. The way your father used to knock on the door before he entered a room. The crackle of fried onions in a pan. Small things. Warm things. They drift in and out, and you hold them like stones in your pockets, rubbing them over and over in your mind to keep their shape. You think of the star, the one the paper folding boy gave you. It is still inside your coat, stitched into the lining by your cousin's careful hand. You imagine it glowing there, a small white flame against the dark. When the train stops again, it is abrupt. You hear shouting, not Polish, not Yiddish. German, sharp, commanding. The bolt on the door groans, then light floods in, blinding. You shield your eyes. A man shouts for everyone to get out. Faster, faster. You're pushed, pulled, dragged forward by the tide of bodies. You fall against someone, lose your mother's hand, then find it again. The ground is hard, mud and gravel, rows of people, armed men, dogs barking. A sign, but it's behind a gate, too far to read. The air smells like coal smoke and chemicals. There's a tower ahead, grey and square, with windows that watch like eyes. You see a line of women in striped dresses. They look past you, through you. Their faces are blank like stone. Your cousin whispers, "Where are we?" But you can't answer. No one answers. The line moves forward. One man points with a stick. Left, right, left. He doesn't look at the faces, just gestures. Over and over. You realise you're being sorted, like animals, like objects. You see an old man stumble. A guard raises his hand, a crack like lightning. The old man does not rise. When it's your turn, your mother tightens her grip again, so tight it hurts. You are pushed forward. The man with the stick looks once, then points, left. The others go right. You try to speak, but your mother says only one thing. Don't look back, so you don't. You move with the others, past the fence, past the tower, past the signs you cannot read. You're inside something now, something large, ordered, silent. You're inside the camp, and you're still a child. But the place you've entered has no space for children. They don't ask your name when you enter the barracks. Not really. A woman with a clipboard shouts something in German, but no one answers her. No one dares to speak unless told. She marks a page, nods at another guard, and then waves you through a door of unpainted wood that sticks in the frame when it shuts behind you. Inside, it's dim. Dust floats in the air like ash. The light comes through gaps in the roof where the boards have splintered. It smells like wet rope and something sour, something human. The walls are low and lined with wooden bunks, one on top of another, like cages, but no doors, just space enough to lie down. Maybe. There are already girls there, older than you, some younger. They glance up, then back down again. No one smiles. No one moves to help. There is no welcome. Your cousin is next to you, still clutching your wrist, but she's breathing hard now, like she's swallowed something she can't cough back up. Your mother was behind you a moment ago, but when you turn to check, she's gone. You remember the stick, the way it moved so quickly, dividing people like rows of numbers on a page. There are no blankets on the beds, just straw, flat and stiff, like it's been reused too many times. You don't wait for permission. You climb into one of the lower bunks with your cousin and sit shoulder to shoulder, arms pressed tight for warmth. Hours pass. The door opens, a woman in a striped dress, thin, hollowed, her face half-shadow, enters with a pail of water and a crust of bread broken into pieces. She doesn't speak. She places the pail on the ground and leaves. One of the older girls moves to it and drinks first, then passes it on. The bread is passed from hand to hand. You get a piece the size of a coin. You eat it slowly. When night falls, it's only darker by degrees. No lamps, no candles, no fire, just breathing. Movements, a cough that doesn't stop. Somewhere, a girl weeps, quietly, into her sleeve. You lie down in the straw and curl into yourself, your cousin beside you. You hold your coat tight against your chest, one hand pressed to the inside lining where the paper star is sewn. You don't take it out. You just feel the corners. You try to remember your mother's last words, but your head is full of train sounds. At dawn, a whistle shrieks across the yard. You're jolted awake. A woman you've never seen before enters. She speaks fast, harsh. One word over and over, rouse, out, out, out. You scramble down, pulled by the tide again. Outside, snow drifts over the square, but you're told to stand in rows. A man counts, then again. Then someone's number doesn't match. He starts over, always in German. You try to understand by tone. You know when he's angry. You know when someone's made a mistake. You know that silence is safer. After the count, they march you to a work site. You don't know what the place is. A pile of bricks, a ditch full of wire, a line of carts to be pushed. Your cousin is sent to peel potatoes in a kitchen somewhere. You're sent to move gravel from one place to another. Useless. Endless. Your fingers freeze around the edges of the bucket. You drop it once and a woman slaps you. Not hard, but sharp. Enough to make you blink. By midday your legs feel hollow. You're sent back, not to rest, but to line up for food. Soup, they call it. But it is more like warm water, greyish, with a floating peel or two. You drink it. You would drink it again. In the evening, a second count, another line, another inspection. A guard pulls a girl from the line. She's limping. They take her behind the shed. You never see her again. You lie down in the straw again. Someone whispers stories of escape, of tunnels, of children hidden in wagons or behind walls. They don't sound real, like something from a far-off book. You remember books, their weight in your lap, the sound the pages made. One girl sleeps with her face to the wall, arms tucked in tight. She has a number tattooed on her forearm. Blue ink. The lines are uneven, as if carved in a hurry. You don't ask. You only look at your own arm, bare still, and wonder if it's only a matter of time. No one uses names. Not really. You're just the little one. Your cousin is quiet girl. The woman who brings the water is Stripe Skirt. The guards don't speak to you, only at you. You're not people here, you're bodies. You begin to forget the sound of your name. That night your cousin whispers that she saw your mother across the yard for a second between the sheds. She was walking head down, carrying a bucket. A guard at her side. She wasn't limping. She looked thin, but alive. You hold this in your chest like a coal, a tiny flickering warmth. Maybe it's true, maybe it isn't. You don't ask twice, because even a maybe in this place is something. The work is always the same, and never the same. Each day they send you somewhere else, pushing a wheelbarrow filled with broken bricks, hauling sacks of sand that leak down your arms, cleaning frozen latrines with a stick and rag, standing still for hours beside a wall, waiting to be told to move. You're too young for most of it, but they do not care. If you can walk, you can work. If you cannot work, you disappear. Your cousin is assigned to the peeling room in the kitchen block, and for a while, this is a small gift. She comes back each evening with frostbitten fingers and potato peels hidden under her shirt. You don't ask how she gets away with it. You just take what she gives, a slice of carrot, a burnt crust, and you both eat in silence beneath the bunks. Some girls trade stories for food, some trade silence, some trade nothing and starve anyway. You lose track of days. There are no calendars, no Shabbat, no holidays, no new months, only the routine, the bell at dawn, the lines, the counting, the labour, the soup, the whistle. You carve lines into the edge of the bunk with a sharp stone, but after a while you stop. The marks don't add up to anything that feels real. You could count forever and still never reach the end. The cold thickens. Your hands crack and bleed, the snow becomes ice, and then ice becomes a kind of ground you must learn to walk on, slowly, carefully, because falling might mean you cannot get back up. No one will help you, not because they are cruel, but because they are exhausted. Everyone is too tired to save someone else. You learn to get up on your own. At roll call, a girl collapses in front of you. She was in the bunk above you, had once told a story about a goose her grandmother kept in a kitchen in Krakow. She had a scratchy voice, deep for her age, and liked to hum in the dark. The guard tells 2 older prisoners to drag her away. She does not return. Her bunk is filled by someone else the same evening. Your cousin draws in the dirt with her finger. Letters, shapes, once the outline of a horse. A horse you both remember from Warsaw. A grey one that pulled milk carts. You both knew its route, and once you fed it a crust of bread. That memory becomes precious, like gold hidden in your chest. You whisper stories to her now, just before sleep, stories about before. You pretend you're back in your own room, your mother lighting the oil lamp, the smells of cinnamon and coffee in the hallway. You describe the sounds, the knock of your father's shoes, the echo of the market bell, the way your cousin used to sing when she thought no one was listening. Sometimes she smiles, sometimes she turns her face to the wall. The guards begin asking for volunteers. Good jobs, they say. Factory work. Better food. Your cousin wants to believe it. She listens carefully when they announce names. You whisper, "Don't," but she keeps hoping. Not for herself. For you. The number of children grows smaller. Some are sent away. Some are too ill to rise. Some simply vanish. One night you wake and find the bunk beside yours empty. The girl's shoes still tucked beneath the bed. The woman with the striped skirt, her name is Zofia, you've learned, sometimes leaves crusts of bread in hidden places, on top of the beam, under the pail, once inside your boot. You never see her do it. You never speak, but you begin to leave things too. A folded paper scrap, a dried flower petal, a match. It is not a game, it is not a trade, it is something else, something you don't have words for. One day, the guards come into the barracks and pull 4 girls out by name. Yours is almost one of them. Your cousin steps in front of you, blocking the way. The guard pushes her aside. She falls, hits her shoulder on the floor, but does not cry out. They take another girl instead. That night, your cousin's shoulder turns purple. You try to touch it, but she hisses in pain. You take off your scarf, fold it into a square, and tie it around her arm. She lets you. Then you both sit and watch the dust in the air. You think of your mother's hands, how they used to part your hair with such care each morning. You wonder if she remembers your hair now, if she dreams of brushing it. The food gets worse. The soup is thinner, the bread mouldy. You see women stealing from each other now, not for malice, but for hunger. Hunger makes everyone dangerous. One girl in your barrack hoards onion skins, hiding them in her sleeves. Another eats soap. You don't blame them. You know what it feels like. One morning, there is a body in the snow by the fence, face turned upward, mouth open. No one touches her. The frost collects on her eyelashes. By afternoon, the body is gone, but the mark she left in the snow remains for 2 more days. Your cousin starts coughing. It's dry at first, but then deepens. She hides it during roll call, pressing her fist to her mouth. At night, you try to rub her back quietly, so the others don't hear. Zofia leaves a scrap of fabric one night with a piece of garlic tied inside. You press it to your cousin's chest. It helps, for a while. You're sent to dig a trench behind the latrine one day. You and 3 other children. The ground is frozen, and the spade is too large for your hands. The work is endless. A guard watches you with a blank expression. His gloves are leather. You notice the shine. You don't cry anymore. Not when your knees split open from falling. Not when your stomach cramps so badly you can't stand. Not when you think about the names of the children who are gone. You remember them, but the tears don't come. They've been used up. You're still a child. But in this place, that word means something different. It means being invisible. Small, easier to lose. Still, each night you lie beside your cousin. You share the warmth of your coats, and when you close your eyes, you see the bakery from home, the chalkboard sign, the bell on the door, the smell of bread rising. You hold that image tight, because it is the only thing here that does not fade. You begin to say your name again, silently, to yourself. Not aloud, never aloud, but in your mind, like a soft rhythm under everything else. You say it in pieces, slow, stretching it out the way your teacher once did when you were learning to spell. You imagine it written on a chalkboard. You imagine it stitched in thread across a coat hook in a hallway that doesn't exist anymore. You imagine it whispered by your mother just once from the other side of the fence. It's a strange thing, how a name can vanish, how it can shrink until it feels like a lie. No one here uses your name. You're just one of the small ones, a number in a line, a moving shape under a heavy coat, but inside your chest, you carry it still, a spark. You remember how it sounded when your cousin used to shout it from the stairwell. You remember how it felt when your father signed it at the bottom of your school papers, just to tease your father, age 38, your father, father of you. Your cousin still coughs at night. The garlic did nothing. The cough has burrowed into her ribs. Each time she curls tighter, like she's trying to vanish. You give her your coat when it's not too cold. She tells you to keep it. You give it anyway. She's losing weight. Everyone is. But she's so small now you can see the bones in her hands like bird wings. You try not to be afraid of her disappearing. Work continues, each day more pointless than the last. They make you scrape ice from stone, then move stones from one pile to another. You've stopped asking why. There's no logic here, just movement, just noise, just order shouted over disorder. Once you're sent with a group to carry buckets of something foul from the kitchens to a ditch beyond the latrine. The ditch is half frozen and smells worse than anything you've ever imagined. You drop your bucket once. A guard raises his stick but doesn't strike. He just looks at you for a long moment, then tells you to do it again. It's better when they don't notice you. It's always better that way. One morning, a woman arrives in the barracks, new young, maybe 20, but her hair is mostly grey already. She doesn't speak, not even to the guards. That night she shares your bunk. She doesn't ask. There's no need. Everyone knows there is no such thing as permission here. You shift over. She lies down without undressing, without looking at you, and closes her eyes. By the third night she's crying in her sleep. You wake to the sound of it, soft and choked. You don't say anything, but your cousin reaches out and touches the woman's hand just once, just a small gesture. The woman goes quiet after that. In the morning she tells you her name. Roja. She says it softly, and you hold it in your memory like another warm stone. She tells you she was taken from Łódź, that she was a teacher, that she had 32 students, and that she remembered the names of all of them. Still, even now, she doesn't say anything else. She doesn't need to. You tell her yours, but quietly, almost without sound, she repeats it, and in that moment, you feel real again. Real in a way the camp tries to take from you every hour. Someone has spoken your name. Someone has remembered you. The next day, Roja is gone. Taken to the hospital block, someone says, the place where they take people who are coughing too loud or walking too slow. You never see her again, but you whisper her name before you sleep. You whisper yours too. You whisper your cousin's, as if the act of saying them can keep them here. One morning your cousin doesn't get up. Her eyes are open. She's breathing, but she won't move. You speak to her. You shake her shoulder gently. You offer her your bread, your whole ration. But she turns her face to the wall. A girl near the stove says it happens sometimes, that some people just stop, that the mind grows too tired to wake again. You sit beside her through roll call. The guards don't notice. Or maybe they don't care. You're small. You're quiet. You've become invisible even to them. That night you sit up and tell her everything you remember. You tell her about the goose from Krakow. You tell her about the milk cart, the woman in your old building who used to give you toffees wrapped in gold paper, the velvet curtains in the cinema, the tin box where you kept buttons and bottle caps, the street lamp outside your window that flickered at exactly 7 o'clock, the book with the green cover you loved so much it tore at the spine. You talk until your throat hurts, until your voice cracks, until your cousin blinks and says very softly, "The book was read," you stop. She closes her eyes again, but this time she's breathing steadier. She pulls your hand beneath the blanket and holds it. You do not speak again that night, but when the morning bell rings she stands, weak but upright. You help her with her boots, and together you go out into the snow. Still children, still here, still holding the pieces of yourselves that the camp has not yet taken. Winter deepens, and the sky grows heavier. Days blend into one another, blurred by cold and repetition. Snow falls in slow sheets now, layering over the footprints of the last roll call, covering the patches of frozen mud and ash. The smoke never stops. It rises behind the far fences, thick and brown, curling up in the windless air like a warning no one explains. You don't ask. You never ask. But you learn where not to look, which direction the smoke comes from, and when it is better to keep your eyes on the ground. Your cousin speaks less. Her voice has grown husky, her cough softer but deeper, hidden behind her scarf. Sometimes she presses her hand to her chest when she thinks you're not watching. You say nothing. You've both learned silence as a kind of defence. The fewer words you use, the more strength you save. Some of the older prisoners begin to disappear, taken to a transport, the guards say. Their names read out from a list, if they still have names. Your cousin asks if a transport ever means freedom, and you don't answer. You don't lie. She stops asking. One afternoon, you're taken to clean the path along the fence, a long strip of cracked stone that leads to one of the gates. It is bitter work, and the wind whips the corners of your scarf like knives. A boy not much older than you slips and falls near the guard's post. He's pulled away quickly, dragged behind a shed. You do not see him again. But later, as you return to your barrack, there's a dark patch on the stone where he fell. You avoid stepping on it. Inside, someone has left a piece of wood near the stove. It's warm inside for a few hours. That night, for the first time in weeks, your cousin doesn't shiver in her sleep. A woman named Sarah, older, maybe your mother's age, sits near the stove and begins telling a story in a whisper. It's about a village where the snow never melted, where people slept all winter and only woke when the spring sun touched their faces. You know it isn't real, but you listen anyway. Her voice is soft, almost musical. She describes a house with shutters and a kettle that never emptied. She talks about birds that flew overhead, low and slow, never afraid. You close your eyes and picture it all. When she finishes, no one speaks. You all sit in the silence, warmed by the impossible idea of a village where nothing hurts. The next morning she's gone. You're not told why. You've stopped counting the ones who vanish. Instead, you begin to remember their names, quietly, to yourself. You repeat them before bed like a prayer. Roja, Sarah, Rivka, Elza, the girl with the scratchy voice, the boy who slipped, the one who hummed songs at night. Each name is an anchor. Each memory is a seed pressed deep in frozen ground. You're assigned to carry coal now. Black dust clings to your fingers no matter how often you rub them clean. The sack is too big for your back, and more than once it tips you sideways. The guards laugh, but they do not hit you. You count that as a kindness. On your third day carrying coal, an older boy helps you lift your sack into place. He doesn't speak, just lifts and walks away. You remember his face, not his name, but his kindness stays with you. At night, you and your cousin share stories again. Tiny ones, half-true memories, things you aren't sure really happened or you dreamed. You pretend you're back at your grandmother's kitchen table, buttering bread too thickly, laughing because your cousin put sugar in the salt dish. You remember a birthday cake that slid sideways in the heat. A train ride when you both leaned out the window to smell the pines. You tell each other these things because they are real, and because this place tries to erase everything that was. You hold on to your past the way someone clutches a photograph in the wind. One night, your cousin speaks your name softly, like she's trying it out again after forgetting. You say hers back, carefully, like it's a word you're afraid to break. That same night, you dream of colour, of red boots and yellow curtains, of a green trolley clanging past your old street. When you wake, the world is grey again, but for a moment you feel stronger, like remembering was something you were meant to do. More snow falls. Someone whispers that the front is getting closer, that the Russians are only days away, that something is changing. You don't believe it, not really. But the guards look more nervous, they shout more, they smoke more, and then, one day, the counting doesn't happen. The entire camp feels strange, like the air has shifted. That night you lie beside your cousin, and she whispers that she heard a rumour, that a girl from another block said she saw soldiers in the trees beyond the fence. You want to believe it, but you've been lied to before. You both have. Still, as you drift towards sleep, you imagine boots in snow. Not the black leather boots of the guards, but others. Heavy, muddy, cold, but different. Boots that don't walk toward you with sticks. Boots that stop in front of the fence and cut it open. You imagine the sound that might make, the silence that would follow, and in that silence, someone might speak your name. The dawn breaks cold and brittle, its pale light spilling weakly through the cracks in the wooden barracks. You wake to an unusual quiet, the kind that presses against your ears and makes your skin crawl. It's not the silence of sleep or the soft murmurs of the sick, but something heavy, charged with waiting. The usual morning cries of guards and the rattle of keys are absent. You pull your thin coat tighter around your body and glance at your cousin, who lies still, her chest rising and falling with shallow breaths. There is a fragile strength in her, something brittle but enduring, like frost on a window pane that might shatter at any moment yet clings on. Outside, a faint sound stirs, a distant murmur of voices carried by the wind, mingled with the clatter of boots on snow. You sit up slowly, your heart pounding with a mixture of hope and fear. Could it be true? Have the rumours of the approaching soldiers finally come to life? You strain your ears trying to catch more. The voices grow louder, deeper, more urgent. It is not the harsh shout of the guards, but something different. Commanding and deliberate, full of purpose. You recognise the cadence of a language you've only heard in fragments, spoken by others in the camp who dared to hope. Your cousin's eyes flutter open. She looks at you, confusion and cautious hope flickering in their depths. You nod slightly, unable to speak, afraid that the sound might vanish if you break the fragile spell. Together, you rise from the bunk, each movement slow, careful, as if the world itself might crack beneath your feet. You wrap your scarf around your face to shield against the biting air and step outside into the pale morning light. The camp looks different today. The sky is a washed-out grey canvas stretching endlessly above the barbed wire fences that twist like serpents across the landscape. The snow crunches beneath your boots, crisp and clean, untouched except for the new footprints that mark the approach of the soldiers. You watch as a column of figures emerges from the trees beyond the fence. Uniformed men carrying rifles, their faces stern but not cruel. They move quickly, methodically, cutting through the wire and opening gates that have been shut for what feels like an eternity. A wave of disbelief washes over the prisoners as the soldiers move through the camp. Some collapse to the ground in tears, others stand frozen, unable to process the sudden change. You clutch your cousin's hand, feeling the faint pulse of life still coursing beneath her fragile skin. There is a cautious hope, mingled with the shadows of memories too painful to forget. You have heard of liberation before, whispered among the prisoners like a myth, a dream so distant it could not be real. But now, here it is, touching your skin, filling your lungs with the possibility of freedom. The soldiers move past you, offering blankets and bread to those too weak to stand. A woman with kind eyes kneels beside your cousin, pressing a piece of warm bread into her hands. You watch as your cousin's lips part in a weak smile, the first in what feels like years. The woman speaks softly, her words unfamiliar but gentle, and you realise that this moment is not just an end but a beginning, a fragile step toward a world you can barely imagine. As the camp empties, you wander toward the edge of the fence, where the soldiers have left an opening wide enough to walk through. You pause, looking back at the rows of barracks, the broken windows, the footprints in the snow that mark the paths of those who have come and gone. You remember the faces, the children, the women, the men, each one a story, a life interrupted but not erased. Your own story is still unfolding, fragile as a new bud in early spring, but it is yours to carry forward. You step through the gate, your cousin limping beside you, and breathe deeply. The air outside the camp is colder, sharper, but it tastes like something you thought you had lost forever. Hope. You look up at the sky, at the pale light filtering through the clouds, and for the first time in a long time, you imagine a future beyond the fences, beyond the smoke and the silence. A future where your name is spoken freely, where your story can be told without fear. The soldiers watch over you with quiet vigilance, but their eyes hold no hatred, only the weight of responsibility and the promise of protection. You do not know what will come next, only that this moment is a turning point, a fragile thread pulling you out of darkness and into something new. You hold your cousin's hand tighter and take a step forward into the unknown, carrying with you the memories of those who did not survive and the hope of those who still breathe. The sound of liberation echoes softly in your ears, a song of survival, resilience, and the unbroken spirit of a child who dared to dream beyond the shadows. The morning light feels strange on your skin, softer, less sharp than the pale winter sun that filtered through the barracks cracks. The air outside the camp is colder, yes, but it carries something different now, a fragile breath of freedom. You and your cousin move slowly through the snow-covered ground, following the soldiers who have opened the gate. Their footsteps are heavy, yet there is a rhythm to them that feels like promise rather than threat. You watch as others step out too, some trembling, some crying quietly, some staring blankly as if they cannot believe the world beyond the fences is real. The world you once knew seems like a distant dream, a hazy painting you try to remember but can only glimpse at the edges of your mind. You hold your cousin's hand tightly. Her fingers are thin and cold, but they grip back. This small touch is your anchor in a place that is suddenly unfamiliar and vast. The soldiers lead you to a clearing where trucks wait, their engines humming softly. They offer food, warm soup, bread, something sweet you cannot name, and blankets that smell of wool and earth. You eat slowly, savouring each bite like it's a secret treasure. The taste so different from the thin rations you have known. You watch your cousin eat too, her eyes brightening for a moment as if she tastes not just the food, but the possibility of life itself. The skies are heavy grey, stretching wide above you, but the clouds seem to part just enough to let a pale sun shine through. You close your eyes and imagine the warmth on your face, something you have not felt in what seems like a lifetime. The cold wind whispers through the trees, carrying with it scents you have long forgotten. Pine, damp earth, the faint trace of flowers you cannot yet name. As the trucks move away from the camp, the landscape blurs past, endless forests dusted with snow, frozen rivers glinting like glass. You rest your head against the window, watching the world move, feeling yourself move with it. It is strange to be free, but also frightening. The future is wide open, full of shadows and unknowns. You think of the people left behind, those who vanished in the night, those who never made it beyond the fences. Their faces come to you in the quiet moments, their names spoken softly in your mind like a prayer. You carry them with you, a silent promise that their stories will not be forgotten. Your cousin leans her head against your shoulder. Her breath is shallow, but steady. You do not speak. Words seem too fragile for this moment. Instead, you squeeze her hand and look ahead, where the world waits, cold, uncertain, but alive. The journey is only beginning. You do not know where it will lead, but you know one thing for certain. You are still here. You have survived. And now, you will step into the light. The trucks stop in a small town not marked on any map you once knew. It's strange how silence settles over this place. A quiet so profound that it almost feels like the earth itself is holding its breath. The soldiers guide you off the vehicles, their faces tired but gentle, and you step down onto frozen ground cracked with thin veins of ice. The air here is sharper, colder, but it also feels lighter, like the weight of unseen chains has finally been lifted from your lungs. You and your cousin are led to a small building, a shelter hastily arranged for those who have been freed but are still fragile, still uncertain how to exist beyond confinement. The walls are bare, the floor rough, but inside there is warmth, real warmth, coming from a small stove in the corner. You watch as other survivors sit quietly, some whispering names and memories, others staring out frosted windows as if searching for a world they lost. You curl up beside your cousin, her head resting against your shoulder. She's thinner than you remember, but her breath is steady now, less laboured. The fear that clung to you both inside the camp still lingers, but it has softened into a dull ache. You feel it like a shadow behind your eyes, always there but not overwhelming. Days pass slowly, food comes more regularly, and each meal is a quiet miracle. You learn to wash your hands in clean water, to brush the grime from your hair. Your body remembers these small acts as if waking from a long dark dream. At night, you and your cousin sit close together and share whispered stories about the past, about the life that was stolen and the hope that flickers ahead. One evening, a woman with kind eyes sits beside you. She speaks softly, telling stories of towns that survived, of schools reopening, of gardens blooming once again under careful hands. She talks about the children who will grow up not knowing this darkness, children who will learn to play freely beneath the sun. You listen and imagine what that might be like, running through fields, feeling grass under your feet, hearing laughter without fear. The idea feels fragile but precious, like a single flame in a vast night. Outside, the wind howls softly, but inside there is a quiet strength growing. You think about the names you carry, the voices, the faces, the lives you have touched and that have touched you. They are threads in a tapestry, fragile yet unbreakable. And though the scars run deep, you begin to believe that one day, the stories of sorrow will give way to stories of survival, to stories of light. The days stretch long and quiet in the shelter, but your thoughts wander beyond its thin walls, past the forests and snow, back to the streets that once held your laughter and tears. You dream of returning to the place that was home, a word that feels heavy with memory and loss. You imagine the houses, the cobblestones worn smooth beneath your feet, the old bakery at the corner where the smell of fresh bread once filled the air. But you also know that everything has changed. Time has not paused for you. It has marched forward relentlessly, erasing and reshaping what you once knew. Your cousin watches you with tired eyes, sharing your silence. Sometimes she hums a fragment of a song you used to sing together, a lullaby from your childhood. It's soft and haunting, a thread of warmth in the cold. You listen, letting the melody carry you back to moments before the world fractured, a time when the future was bright and open. The soldiers speak in hushed tones about returning to your town. They say it is possible, that some families have begun to reclaim their homes, but the journey is uncertain, the road's dangerous. You feel both hope and fear twisting inside you like wind through bare branches. What will you find? Will the place still recognize you, or will it have forgotten your name? One afternoon, a group of survivors gathers, and a map is unfolded on a rough wooden table. Fingers trace the roads and rivers, pointing toward the paths home. You listen closely as they speak of towns burned, of buildings standing empty, of neighbours gone or changed beyond recognition. The weight of these stories settles on you, but so does a quiet determination. The world may be broken, but you are still here. You will find your way back. Your cousin and you prepare for the journey, packing the few belongings you have, a worn scarf, a small tin with precious keepsakes, a folded letter from a friend you have never met. The cold air bites at your skin as you step outside the shelter, the sky vast and pale overhead. Each breath you take feels like a promise to yourself, to remember, to survive, to rebuild. As you walk toward the road that will lead you home, the snow crunching softly beneath your boots, you carry with you the stories of those who cannot walk beside you anymore. Their names echo in your mind, a chorus of resilience and love. The path ahead is uncertain, and the world you knew may be gone, but the thread of your story stretches forward, fragile, strong, and unbroken. You take your cousin's hand, and together you step into the unknown, ready to face whatever waits beyond the horizon. The road ahead is quiet, lined with skeletal trees whose branches stretch like cold fingers against the pale sky. Snow crunches beneath your boots as you walk, the air crisp and biting but somehow alive, filled with the muted sounds of a world beginning to stir after a long, harsh winter. Your cousin walks beside you, her steps uneven but steady, clutching your hand like a lifeline. Each breath forms a small cloud that dissolves quickly in the frosty morning, a reminder that you're still here, still moving forward. The villages you pass are silent. Many houses stand dark and empty, windows broken or boarded up, roofs sagging under the weight of neglect. Doors hang crooked on their hinges, and the streets are scattered with debris that whispers stories of sudden departures and shattered lives. You slow your pace, eyes scanning for signs of life, hoping to find someone, a neighbour, a familiar face, but the emptiness presses in, heavy and cold. At the edge of one village, a small garden survives beneath a thin layer of snow. Wilted flowers, stubborn and pale, poke through the earth. You kneel beside them, brushing the frost away with careful fingers. It is a small miracle, a quiet defiance against the cold and the silence. You imagine the hands that planted these seeds long ago, hands now gone, and feel a surge of connection across time and loss. Your cousin shivers, and you wrap your coat tighter around her shoulders, pulling her close. She leans her head on your arm, and for a moment, the world feels less lonely. You talk softly about what you hope to find at the end of the road, a home perhaps, or just a place where you can rest without fear. But mostly, you walk, letting your footsteps mark a path through the quiet ruins. At night, you shelter beneath a ruined barn, its beams creaking softly in the wind. You share what little food you have, savouring the warmth of the small fire and the sound of your cousin's breathing beside you. The stars overhead are bright and cold, scattered across the sky like shattered glass. You look up and whisper the names of those you carry in your heart, the ones who walked beside you in darkness, and the ones who did not return. The journey is long, and each step is a prayer for a future you cannot yet see. But beneath the weight of loss and memory, there is a thread of hope, delicate and persistent, weaving through the cold air and leading you home. The road stretches endlessly before you, a winding ribbon of snow and ice leading back to a place that both beckons and terrifies. Each step carries the weight of 1,000 memories, the ghosts of laughter and tears mingling with the cold air that bites at your cheeks. The sky above is a dull grey, heavy with the promise of more snow, and the trees lining the path stand bare and silent, like sentinels guarding secrets too painful to speak aloud. Your cousin walks beside you, her footsteps hesitant but determined. The scarf around her neck is threadbare, and her hands are red and cracked from the cold, yet she presses on, her eyes fixed on the horizon where the faint outlines of rooftops begin to emerge through the falling snow. You reach out, squeezing her hand gently, offering what little comfort you can in a world that has changed beyond recognition. As you draw closer to the outskirts of your town, the silence deepens. The familiar shapes of houses rise like spectres, their windows shattered or boarded, doors hanging open to the winter wind. The garden where your grandmother once grew roses is overgrown with weeds, the earth frozen and unyielding. You pause, swallowing the lump in your throat, and remember the warmth of that garden, the smell of earth and blossoms mingling with the soft hum of bees. The streets are empty, save for the occasional stray cat or dog, thin and wary, prowling for scraps. You tread carefully, eyes scanning every corner for signs of life, for the glimmer of a face that might still remember you. But the town seems abandoned, caught in a frozen moment between past and present. The echoes of laughter and footsteps that once filled these streets feel like a cruel illusion, fading with each breath you take. At the edge of the square you find the bakery where your family used to buy fresh bread on Saturday mornings. The door hangs ajar, swinging gently in the wind. Inside, the counters are dusted with frost, and the scent of yeast and sugar is a faint, aching memory. You step inside cautiously, the floor creaking beneath your boots. A broken clock on the wall has stopped at a time you cannot read. You imagine your mother kneading dough here, her hands strong and sure, her voice soft as she called you for lunch. Outside, the snow begins to fall again, settling quietly over the ruins of your childhood. You and your cousin find shelter in what remains of your home, a shell of brick and wood battered by time and neglect. The fire is cold, but you gather scraps of paper and broken furniture to kindle a small flame. The light flickers against the walls, casting shadows that dance like memories. As night falls, you sit together in the dark, your bodies close for warmth. The silence between you is filled with the unspoken, the loss, the fear, the hope that still flickers beneath the surface. You reach into your pocket and pull out a small folded photograph, edges worn and creased. It is a picture of your family, taken before the world turned upside down. You trace the faces with trembling fingers, each smile a fragile thread connecting you to a past that feels both distant and alive. You whisper their names into the night, a quiet litany of remembrance. And as the fire crackles softly, you allow yourself to imagine a future, one where the scars of yesterday are softened by the promise of tomorrow, where the stories of survival become stories of healing, and where the light finally breaks through the shadows. The road home is not just a place but a journey through memory and resilience, a testament to the unyielding spirit of a child who has faced darkness and still dares to hope. The cold morning air is sharp as you step outside what remains of your home, a thin blanket of snow crunching beneath your worn boots. The sky is pale, a muted wash of grey that seems to press close to the earth. Your breath rises in small clouds, mingling with the quiet as you and your cousin prepare to search for anything salvageable, any trace of the life that once was. You move slowly, each step heavy with both hope and dread. The landscape around you a fragile mosaic of memory and loss. The street stretches before you like a faded photograph, houses standing like hollowed shells, windows broken, doors missing or hanging askew. Each structure holds its own story, a silent witness to what was and what could never be again. You stop by a charred fence, its blackened wood stark against the white snow, and run your fingers along its rough edges. It feels like touching a scar, a reminder that time may pass, but the wounds linger beneath the surface. Your cousin spots a garden gate half buried in snow, the ironwork twisted but still standing. You push it open with a creak, revealing a small yard where the skeletal remains of rose bushes poke through the frozen earth. Kneeling, you brush snow from a single brittle stem and find a faded bloom, its colour dulled but still defiant against the cold. You tuck it carefully into your coat pocket, a quiet treasure in a world of ruins. As you explore further, you find a shattered window frame, and through it, glimpses of a room frozen in time. A cracked porcelain doll, a worn book with yellowed pages, a broken chair tipped on its side. These fragments speak softly to you, whispers of a childhood interrupted but not erased. You imagine the lives behind these objects, the laughter that once filled the air, the small joys now silenced by the passage of years. The wind picks up, swirling snowflakes around you, and you pull your coat tighter, your thoughts drifting to the faces you carry in your heart. Those lost along the way, their stories etched into your soul like lines on weathered skin. You feel their presence here, in these broken places, in the quiet that stretches between the buildings. It is as if they walk beside you, invisible but never gone. Your cousin finds a small tin box half buried in the snow near the doorstep. Together, you brush off the frost and pry it open. Inside are a few dried leaves, a faded photograph, and a folded letter written in a shaky hand. You unfold the paper carefully, reading the words slowly, feeling the tremor of the writer's hope and fear. It is a message from the past, a fragment of a life that once was, now returned to you like a whispered promise. You fold the letter and place it safely in your coat, a silent vow to remember, to carry forward the stories of those who cannot speak for themselves. The snow continues to fall softly around you, a gentle veil over the ruins, a quiet blanket for the memories that live on. Together, you and your cousin stand in the fading light, surrounded by the echoes of a home reclaimed by time but never forgotten. The journey is far from over, but in these fragile fragments, you find a glimmer of something precious, a thread of connection, a seed of hope that will carry you forward. The morning light filters weakly through the bare branches outside, casting long shadows on the worn wooden floor beneath your feet. The ruined house holds a fragile quiet, as if the walls themselves are holding their breath, waiting for something that might never come again. Yet within you and your cousin, there is a flicker, a stubborn spark that refuses to be extinguished. The world beyond the ruins is beginning to stir, and with it comes the faint possibility of a life reclaimed, of routines rebuilt, of dreams slowly taking shape once more. You have heard whispers from other survivors, children like you, about a school reopening in the nearby town. It is not much, just a single room in a damaged building, but it is a place where learning might begin again, where the echoes of lessons long paused might return. The thought of returning to school stirs a mix of emotions inside you, hope and hesitation, excitement and fear. How can you forget the shadows that still linger, the losses that weigh so heavily? Yet, there is also a yearning, a quiet hunger for normalcy, for the chance to reclaim the days stolen from you. You and your cousin bundle yourselves against the cold, wrapping the few warm clothes you have around your bodies. The walk to the school is slow, the streets still empty and scarred, but the promise of the journey fills the air with a fragile lightness. You clutch your bag, a small bundle of tattered notebooks and pencils, relics of a past life that now feel like precious treasures. The building where the school has started again stands crooked but proud, its walls scarred by fire and neglect but still standing against the sky. Inside you find a handful of children, their faces pale but bright with the shared understanding of survival. The teacher, a woman with kind eyes and a gentle voice, welcomes you quietly, her presence a steady beacon in the uncertainty. The lessons are simple, letters traced in soot on torn paper, numbers counted aloud with trembling voices, stories shared softly between moments of silence. You listen and learn, the words feeling strange yet familiar, like an old song you thought you'd forgotten. The schoolroom smells of cold wood and chalk dust, mixed with the faint scent of hope. Outside, the wind stirs the broken glass in the windows, a reminder of the fragility of this new beginning. Yet inside there is warmth, not just from the small stove in the corner, but from the gathering of young hearts reaching towards something better. You find yourself smiling, a quiet, cautious smile that feels like a small rebellion against the darkness that once engulfed you. As the day draws to a close, you and your cousin walk home beneath a sky streaked with pale pink and grey. The world is still bruised and battered, but you carry within you the promise of tomorrow, a chance to learn, to grow, to heal. The road ahead is uncertain, but in the company of each other, and the faint glow of new beginnings, you feel a fragile strength taking root. The past will always be a part of you, but today, in this moment, you take a step toward the future. The days at school grow slowly steadier, like a fragile rhythm finding its place amid the lingering silence. Each morning you step over cracked pavement and broken glass, the cold air brushing your cheeks as you make your way to the small classroom nestled among the ruins of what was once a bustling town. Inside, the warmth from the stove chases away the chill, and the soft murmur of children's voices fills the space, a quiet symphony of hope amidst the shadows. Among these children, you find a friend. She's quiet, with wide eyes that seem to hold 1,000 untold stories, much like your own. At first, you sit together in silence, sharing shy glances and tentative smiles. But as days pass, the silence between you slowly begins to fill with whispered conversations and small acts of kindness. A shared piece of bread, a drawn picture on a scrap of paper, a comforting hand during moments when the memories threaten to overwhelm. You discover that she too has lost much, her family scattered like leaves in the wind. Yet, in her presence, the world feels less heavy, the past less sharp. Together, you create a small sanctuary within the classroom walls, a place where laughter, fragile and rare, finds room to grow. The teacher watches quietly, her eyes gentle and understanding, knowing that healing is a slow and uneven journey. Outside the windows, the winter light filters through broken glass, casting fractured patterns on the floor. The world beyond remains uncertain, but within these moments, a fragile peace takes root. You and your friend exchange stories, not of grand adventures or fairy tales, but simple memories. A favourite song, a secret place, the taste of summer berries. These small fragments become threads weaving a tapestry of connection and resilience. At times, the weight of what has been lost presses down like the cold outside, and tears fall quietly, shared without words. But in those moments, your friend's hand finds yours, a silent promise that you're not alone. Together you learn to carry the past without being crushed by it, to hold the sorrow alongside the hope. As the days lengthen and the snow begins to thaw, you feel the first stirrings of a future not yet written. The road ahead remains uncertain and long, but the bond forged in this small classroom is a beacon, a quiet friendship that lights the way through the lingering darkness. The first thaw of spring begins to seep into the earth, slow and deliberate, just as you feel a cautious warmth returning to your days. The snow melts in rivulets along the streets, turning cracked cobblestones slick and muddy. The chill in the air is still sharp, but the sunlight stretches longer and touches the tops of trees with a gentle glow. This small change in the world outside mirrors a subtle shift inside you, a stirring of hope amid the careful rebuilding of routine. The school, still humble and fragile, becomes a place where small acts of normalcy take root. Mornings are greeted with the scrape of boots and the rustle of worn coats, the clinking of the stove's kettle warming water for tea. The children arrive with quiet anticipation, clutching their few belongings, carrying scars both visible and hidden. Here, beneath cracked walls and fractured windows, the daily rhythm of learning and listening unfolds. You and your cousin, along with your quiet friend, take part in simple tasks, sweeping floors, gathering wood for the stove, sharing pieces of stale bread. These small chores are more than mere survival. They are gestures of reclaiming control, of making a space that feels like a fragile home. Each action is a thread in the tapestry of healing, a whisper that life, even after such darkness, can grow again. Lessons continue, not just in reading and writing, but in stories. The teacher encourages you to share memories, to speak of the past with gentle honesty. At first, your words come in hesitant fragments, like broken glass carefully pieced together. You tell of snow-covered streets, and the sound of distant footsteps, of whispered names in hiding, of the warmth of your cousin's hand in the cold. Your friend shares too, and the stories weave together, binding you in a shared experience that is both painful and precious. Outside, the world is still wounded, trees stripped bare, buildings scarred, but the air hums with the quiet promise of renewal. You notice tiny green shoots pushing through the thawed earth, stubborn and bright against the grey. In these tender signs of life, you find a reflection of your own resilience. At night, when the cold seeps back into the bones of the earth, you hold the small keepsakes you carry, faded photographs, a pressed flower, a letter written in shaky handwriting, and think of the future. It is a future you cannot yet see clearly, but you know it exists somewhere beyond the silence. Here, in these small moments and quiet acts, life begins to reclaim its place. The past is a shadow behind you, but not the whole story. Step by step, breath by breath, the world softens, and the fragile hope within you grows a little stronger. The first true warmth of spring encourages more movement outside. The market square, once bustling with the sounds of haggling voices, cartwheels and children's laughter, remains a shadow of its former self, but now its emptiness is softened by the tentative footsteps of those who survived. You and your cousin decide to walk there one afternoon, curiosity mingled with cautious hope guiding your way through the battered streets. The sky's pale blue, dotted with soft clouds drifting lazily, and the sunlight filters through bare branches, casting delicate shadows on the cracked stones beneath your feet. As you approach the square, the faint scent of damp earth and wood smoke drifts in the air, mingling with the remnants of memories. Fresh bread from the baker's stall, the crisp snap of apples, the faint tang of herbs and spices. The ghosts of market days past linger here, a bittersweet echo. Vendors have begun to return, small and few, setting up makeshift stalls with whatever goods they can gather. Bundles of herbs, jars of honey, bundles of worn fabric. Their faces are tired but welcoming, eyes wary yet kind. You walk slowly past, absorbing the textures and colours, the quiet murmur of conversation, a language of survival and slow rebuilding. A man with weathered hands offers you a small piece of fresh bread, its crust still warm, and you accept with a grateful nod, feeling the texture between your fingers. The taste is simple but profound, a reminder of life's small pleasures amid hardship. Nearby, a child not much older than you sells wildflowers, gathered from the edges of the forest, their colours bright against the grey stone. Your cousin spots a woman sitting quietly on a bench, her face framed by tangled hair and lined with sorrow. You recognise her, once a neighbour, now a survivor like you. She smiles faintly, and for a moment, the shared history folds the space between you. You exchange stories in hushed tones, memories weaving a fragile thread of connection across the years of silence. As you walk back through the square, the sounds of footsteps, whispered greetings, and the clinking of simple coins mark a tentative return to life. The wounds of the past remain, but here, in the softened light of spring, the first seeds of community are planted anew. The market square, once a symbol of what was lost, becomes a quiet promise of what might be rebuilt. One small act, one shared smile at a time. Days blend into each other with a quiet rhythm, the fragile pulse of life beating softly beneath the surface of a still fragile world. The cold is fading, but the past clings stubbornly, wrapped around your heart like a faded shawl. In the small moments of peace that the spring brings, a new thread of connection begins to weave itself, a discovery that bridges the past and present, hope and memory. One afternoon, while helping your cousin clean out the remains of a dusty attic, you uncover a bundle of old letters tied with a brittle ribbon. The paper is yellowed and delicate, edges softened by time and use. You carefully untie the bundle, feeling the weight of what they might hold, words from a time when the world was different, voices frozen in ink. Sitting together by the window, you unfold the first letter. The handwriting is shaky but clear, a child's script filled with longing and small joys. The letter tells of simple days before the storm, of friends and school, of secret games played in sunlit gardens. Each word feels like a fragile lifeline, connecting you to a world you barely remember, yet feel aching to reclaim. As you read more, the letters begin to tell a story, not just of what was lost, but of resilience and love. There are notes from parents to children, cousins to each other, friends separated by distance but united by hope. Some letters speak of fear and hiding, of whispered plans and quiet courage. Others share dreams for the future, small promises to survive and find one another again. You hold each letter close, feeling the texture of the paper and the rhythm of the words. These letters become a map of memory, a guide through the darkness. They remind you that you are not alone, that your story is part of a larger tapestry of human experience, woven with sorrow but also strength. Your cousin traces the faded ink with trembling fingers, and you share silent tears, the weight of what was lost mingling with the fragile hope these letters carry. In this quiet communion, you find a new kind of courage, a determination to carry forward the stories, to remember the names and faces, to build a future shaped by the echoes of the past. The letters are a gift, a whisper from those who came before, a reminder that even in the darkest times the human spirit can write its own story, one of survival, connection, and quiet hope. Days grow warmer, and with each passing moment the fragile threads of life continue weaving themselves into a tentative pattern of survival and renewal. Yet beneath the surface of this quiet world lies the memory of shadows, hidden places where fear and hope intertwined in ways that remain almost impossible to speak aloud. Today, your cousin brings you to a secret place, a small room concealed behind a loose wall panel in an old building long since abandoned. The door creaks softly as you push it open, revealing a narrow space dimly lit by a single dusty window. The air is still and heavy with the scent of old wood and forgotten whispers. Inside you find remnants of a time when this small room was more than just shelter. It was a refuge, a sanctuary for those forced to hide from the world outside. There are worn blankets folded neatly in the corner, a few empty tins once filled with precious food, and faint marks on the walls, where hands or fingers might have traced names, dates, or prayers. You run your fingers along the rough surface of the wall, imagining the quiet breaths held here, the muffled whispers and soft footsteps that passed through this space. It was a place of fear, yes, but also of resilience, a narrow lifeline threaded with hope and determination. You think of the children who might have pressed their small bodies against the cold wood, their hearts pounding with a mixture of terror and courage. Your cousin finds a faded drawing tucked beneath a loose floorboard, a simple sketch of a bird in flight, its wings outstretched, as if longing for freedom. The image feels like a message from the past, a silent prayer carried across time. You hold it carefully, as if it might break, and place it gently on the dusty table. Together, you sit in the stillness, sharing the weight of what this room represents. Outside, the world moves on, unaware of the hidden stories embedded in its walls. But here, in this quiet refuge, the echoes of past lives linger, whispers of survival, moments of tenderness amid darkness, and the unyielding will to live and remember. You feel the presence of those who hid here, not as shadows, but as enduring light. In this hidden room, the past and present meet, weaving a delicate thread of memory and hope that binds you to those who came before and those who will follow. Spring deepens, and with it comes a subtle transformation, not only in the world around you, but in the quiet spaces within yourself. The air grows warmer, carrying the gentle scent of earth awakening after a long, cold sleep. One afternoon, you and your cousin decide to venture beyond the broken streets and shattered homes, drawn by stories whispered among survivors about a small garden once tucked away behind an old synagogue, a place rumoured to have survived the worst of the destruction. The path there is uneven and overgrown, lined with cracked stones and tangled weeds that push through the fractured pavement like stubborn reminders of life's persistence. As you walk, the soft crunch of your boots on gravel is the only sound, mingling with the distant call of birds and the faint rustle of wind weaving through bare branches. The sky is a pale canvas of muted blue and wispy clouds, a quiet contrast to the scars below. Approaching the garden, you find it partially hidden behind a crumbling brick wall, vines creeping along its edges like fingers trying to reclaim what once was theirs. Pushing aside the heavy iron gate, you step inside and are immediately struck by the surreal stillness. Here, amidst the ruins, patches of green stubbornly cling to the soil, sprouts of grass, wild flowers, and a few hardy herbs. The earth is soft beneath your fingers, warmed by the gentle sun, and the scent of damp moss and fresh growth fills the air. You kneel down carefully, touching the earth as if it might speak, as if it holds the stories of those who tended this hidden sanctuary long ago. You imagine children, perhaps not unlike yourself, playing quietly here, their laughter muffled by the walls and the weight of the world beyond. You picture a grandmother's hands planting seeds, a father's quiet smile as he waters the small shoots, a mother whispering lullabies beneath the stars. In a corner of the garden, you find a weathered wooden bench, its paint peeling but still sturdy. Sitting there, you feel the quiet pulse of life returning, fragile but unmistakable. Your cousin pulls from a pocket a small packet of seeds, a gift from a stranger, they say, and together you scatter them gently into the soil. The act feels sacred, a silent vow to nurture, to grow, to carry forward the spirit of those who once called this place home. As you sit side by side, the garden wraps around you like a gentle embrace, a reminder that even after devastation, life finds a way. The memories of loss and fear remain, but here they coexist with hope and renewal, woven into the very fabric of the earth beneath your hands. The sun begins its slow descent, casting long soft shadows over the garden. The sky blushes with the muted colours of dusk, and the air cools just enough to remind you of the fragile balance between light and darkness. But in this moment, you feel grounded, in a place where past and future meet, where the quiet resilience of nature mirrors your own. The garden beneath the rubble is a sanctuary not only of earth and seed, but of memory and promise, a place where the stories of children lost and found can take root and blossom once more. Night falls gently over the fragile town, folding the world into a soft blanket of darkness that seems both heavy and comforting. The cold seeps through cracked windows and gaps in walls, but inside the small rooms where survivors gather, there is a fragile warmth, the quiet presence of others, the low murmur of whispered conversations, and the soft flicker of candlelight casting dancing shadows on the walls. You lie on a thin mattress, the rough fabric scratched against your skin, bundled in a worn blanket that smells faintly of smoke and wood. Outside, the wind hums through the broken trees, a lullaby both eerie and soothing. Your cousin sleeps nearby, breathing softly, the steady rhythm a quiet anchor in the stillness. The world has been stripped down to its barest elements, light and dark, warmth and cold, silence and sound. In these quiet hours, your mind drifts like a slow current, carrying memories and fears, hopes and regrets. You recall the faces of friends lost, the moments of terror and hiding, the days when laughter seemed impossible. Yet, even in the midst of sorrow, there are flickers of joy, a shared secret, a gentle touch, a moment of kindness that refuses to be forgotten. The night stretches long, and you listen to the sounds that surround you, the distant call of an owl, the rustle of footsteps outside, the soft sigh of breath in the room. Time seems suspended, neither moving forward nor backward, held in a fragile pause between what was and what might be. You think of the children who came before, whose stories echo in the quiet. Their courage and resilience live on in the night stillness, in the space between heartbeats. You imagine their dreams, fragile and bright, carried on the wings of the dark. The night becomes a canvas for memory, a place where past and present blend, where sorrow and hope coexist in a delicate balance. In this silence, you feel the weight of survival, the cost of endurance. Yet there is also a quiet strength, a thread of light woven through the darkness. The night holds you gently, a reminder that even in the deepest shadows there is a space to rest, to breathe, and to gather strength for the days to come. The world outside is vast and uncertain, but here, in the quiet hours of the night, you find a moment of peace, fragile and fleeting, but real. The morning breaks slowly, pale light filtering through ragged clouds and casting a muted glow over the ruins you now call home. The air is crisp, tinged with the scent of damp earth and smoke, a reminder of the fires that have scarred the town and the lives within it. Today, you and your cousin prepare for a journey that feels both daunting and inevitable. A forced passage to a place whispered about in fearful tones, a camp far from the fragile safety of your hidden spaces. The hours before departure pass in a blur of quiet preparation. You gather what little belongings remain, frayed clothing, a few treasured keepsakes, the worn bundle of letters found in the attic. Your heart pounds with a mixture of dread and numbness, the weight of uncertainty pressing down like a heavy cloak. Around you, others ready themselves in similar silence, faces pale and eyes distant, each carrying their own burdens and stories. The walk to the gathering point is slow and heavy. The cracked streets, once familiar, now feel alien, scarred by destruction and heavy with memories you try to push aside. The sky overhead is a dull grey, mirroring the sombre mood that hangs over the group. As you move, you notice the quiet glances exchanged between those around you, a shared understanding that no words can fully express. When you arrive, the camp reveals itself not with fanfare but with stark, brutal simplicity. Barbed wire fences stretch taut against the sky, watchtowers standing silent sentinels. Rows of wooden barracks, worn and weathered, stand like open wounds in the landscape. The air is heavy with the mingled sense of cold wood, damp earth, and something harsher, fear, loss, and the ghosts of countless unnamed souls. Inside the camp you find yourself swept into a new rhythm, a regimented existence of roll calls, ration lines, and endless waiting. The days blur together, marked by the grinding sameness of survival. You cling to your cousin's hand, finding solace in the small connection amid the vast loneliness. The faces around you are etched with exhaustion and sorrow, yet beneath the weariness sparks of resilience still flicker. You remember the stories from the letters, the whispers of hope and promises made in hidden rooms. Those voices become your anchor, a reminder that even here, in this place of despair, the human spirit endures. You watch the sky change through the thin windows, soft dawns, grey afternoons, and nights filled with distant stars, and find a strange comfort in the constancy of their presence. Each day is a test of endurance, each moment a quiet struggle. Yet, amidst the hardship there are fleeting instances of humanity, a shared crust of bread, a whispered song, the gentle touch of a hand on a trembling shoulder. These small acts become lifelines, fragile threads woven through the darkness. The journey to the camp was just the beginning, a passage from one kind of nightmare to another, but within you, a stubborn flicker of hope remains. It is fragile, like a seed buried deep in winter soil, waiting for the time to grow. Inside the camp, the barracks rise like solemn monuments to hardship. Their wooden walls, rough and weathered, seem to absorb the cold and carry the weight of countless stories, stories of fear, endurance, and the faint glimmers of hope that persist even here. You and your cousin are assigned to one of these long, narrow buildings, its windows small and barred, letting in only thin slivers of grey light. Stepping inside, the air is thick and heavy, tinged with the scent of damp wood, sweat, and a lingering, unspoken sorrow. The floorboards creak underfoot, worn smooth by countless footsteps, and the narrow bunks are lined up side by side, packed so tightly that there is barely room to breathe. The blankets are thin and threadbare, the few possessions you manage to keep tucked beneath your pillow, a small treasure trove of memories and tokens of your former life. The days inside the barracks stretch long and monotonous. The walls seem to close in, echoing with whispered conversations and muffled sobs. You lie awake at night, listening to the creaking beams, the rustle of movement, and the occasional distant cry that pierces the stillness. The darkness feels both suffocating and protective, a shield against the harshness of the world outside. In the cramped space, your cousin becomes your anchor. Together you share stories from before, recalling the warmth of the garden, the secret letters, and the hidden room. These memories are like fragile lanterns, casting a soft light that pushes back the shadows. Sometimes, you manage to smile quietly, the faintest glimmer of something like peace in a place designed to strip away hope. You notice the other children, some younger, some older, each carrying their own invisible burdens. There is a quiet camaraderie in the shared silence, a mutual understanding that words cannot fully capture. In stolen moments, you exchange small kindnesses, a piece of bread, a whispered joke, a gentle touch on an aching shoulder. Despite the hardships, the barracks become a space where resilience takes root. The human spirit, though battered, refuses to be extinguished. You learn to navigate the rhythms of the camp, the roll calls, the meals, the fleeting moments of rest, with a careful balance of caution and quiet defiance. Outside, the sky changes with the seasons, but inside the barracks, time feels suspended. Yet, within this confinement, you nurture a fragile hope, like a seedling sheltered beneath the cold earth, waiting for the moment it can break through and reach the light. Within the confines of the barracks, where walls close in like silent witnesses to every breath and every whispered fear, a quiet rebellion begins to take shape. It is not one of force or defiance in the open, but a more subtle resistance, one woven from the threads of knowledge and memory, carried forward by those who refuse to let the darkness erase their past or their future. Your cousin, with a cautious but determined glint in their eyes, gathers a small group of children in the dim corner of the barracks, where the shadows fall thickest and the guards' patrols are fewest. The wooden planks beneath you creak softly as you sit cross-legged, clutching a scrap of paper or a faded book, a precious remnant salvaged from before, or carefully hidden by someone who understands the power of learning. In this secret circle, words take on new meaning. Letters and numbers, stories and poems become a lifeline, an assertion of identity, of humanity, in a place designed to strip it away. The lessons are quiet and brief, spoken in hushed tones so as not to draw attention, but they fill you with a gentle warmth, a fragile hope that flickers in the cold air. Your teacher is a young woman, herself a survivor of too much loss, who speaks with patience and kindness, weaving lessons into stories that touch the heart as well as the mind. She tells you about the stars that shine beyond the camp fences, about the rivers and forests waiting beyond the barbed wire, and about the power of words to keep memory alive. You learn to write your name carefully, each letter a small victory, to read passages from books smuggled in by brave souls, to share stories from before, whispered like precious secrets. These lessons are more than education. They are acts of defiance, a quiet refusal to be broken. Outside, the world remains harsh and unforgiving, but within this small circle a fragile sanctuary blooms. The knowledge you gain becomes a shield, a source of strength, and a promise that the future still holds possibility. Even in the darkest places, the light of learning shines, flickering but unyielding. Each secret lesson is a step toward reclaiming what was lost, a soft but powerful reclaiming of hope amid despair. And though the days ahead remain uncertain, these moments of quiet education weave a thread of resilience that binds you to those who have gone before and those who will come after. The night descends like a heavy curtain, swallowing the camp in a deep, unsettling silence that presses against your skin. The cold is sharper now, biting at exposed faces and hands, and the sparse light from the stars seems distant and cold, as if even the heavens watch silently over the suffering below. Inside the barracks, the quiet whispers fade, replaced by a thick tension that settles over you like a storm ready to break. You lie awake, heart pounding in the shadows, listening to the uneven sounds outside, the crunch of footsteps on frozen earth, the sharp bark of orders shouted in harsh voices, the jangle of keys and chains. The guards move swiftly, their presence more urgent than before, stirring a wave of panic among those who have begun to hope for a small measure of safety. The familiar routine shatters, replaced by chaos and fear. Voices cry out, some pleading, some defiant, as the camp is thrown into turmoil. You clutch your cousin's hand tightly, their fingers cold and trembling, and press yourself against the rough wooden wall, trying to make yourself as small and invisible as possible. The air is thick with dust and fear, every breath shallow and quick. Amid the confusion, you catch glimpses of faces, some filled with terror, others hardened by years of pain. Mothers clutch children close, trying to shield them from the merciless sweep of soldiers' searches. You hear the sobs of those separated, the desperate calls for lost family members swallowed by the night. The camp, once a grim but steady rhythm, now becomes a maelstrom of uncertainty and dread. In this darkness, you feel the fragility of life more acutely than ever. The weight of survival presses down with a suffocating force, but beneath the fear, a small, stubborn flame of courage flickers. You remind yourself of the stories shared in secret, of the lessons learned, of the hidden garden where hope still dared to grow. These memories become your shield against despair. The raid seems endless, but eventually the heavy footsteps recede, the shouting fades, and an uneasy quiet returns. The camp lies still, broken and trembling, but not yet defeated. You and your cousin exchange a glance, a silent vow passing between you, to hold on, to endure, to remember. The night is dark and full of shadows, but somewhere deep within, you carry a fragile spark, a spark that, even in the darkest hours, refuses to be extinguished. The days following the raid are heavy with silence, each moment stretching long and fragile as if the camp itself is holding its breath. The harsh routine continues, the roll calls, the endless waiting, the cold meals handed out with mechanical detachment, but beneath the surface grief coils like a silent serpent. You feel the absence of those taken, their empty spaces at the barracks a constant ache, a hollow in the fabric of your small world. One morning, you learn that one of your closest friends, a boy your age with bright eyes and a quick smile, did not return after the chaos. The news settles over you like a thick fog, dulling your senses and slowing your breath. You remember the way he used to joke quietly during the secret lessons, how he shared his bread when the rations were thin, how his laughter once broke through the walls of the barracks like a fragile ray of light. You search for him in your mind, his face, his voice, the way he stood beside you during those first days in the camp. The memories feel both distant and painfully vivid, like echoes trapped in a cavern where time has lost meaning. You realise that the loss is more than just the absence of a friend. It is a fracture in your own sense of safety, a reminder of how precarious everything is. The camp feels colder now, the shadows longer and deeper. You clutch your cousin's hand tighter, seeking comfort in their quiet presence. Together, you sit by the thin window, watching the grey sky, and speak in whispers about the boy, his dreams, his kindness, the small moments that made him unforgettable. These stories become a way to keep him alive, a fragile bridge between past and present. Despite the grief, you find a quiet resolve settling in your chest. You understand that remembering is a form of resistance, that by holding on to the stories of those lost, you honour their lives and refuse to let the darkness erase them completely. This grief becomes part of the tapestry of survival, woven through with sorrow but also with a stubborn hope. The camp remains a place of hardship and fear, but in these moments of shared memory, you glimpse the enduring strength of the human spirit, a strength that can carry you through even the longest nights. Amidst the bleakness of the camp, where days blend into one another with a relentless sameness of hardship and fear, there are rare moments when a flicker of light pierces through the darkness. One such moment comes quietly, carried on soft footsteps and whispered excitement. A small group of older prisoners has managed to smuggle in a fragile treasure, a battered violin, its wood scratched and worn but still capable of song. You hear about it first in hushed conversations, the news spreading like a gentle wind through the barracks. The idea of music here feels almost impossible, a fragile thread connecting you back to a world that seems distant and unreal. Yet, when the violin's first notes rise tentatively in the dim light of a hidden corner, something inside you stirs, a quiet hope, a memory of beauty amid the cruelty. The music is soft and slow, trembling like a breath, but it grows stronger with each note, filling the cramped space with a sound that feels almost sacred. You close your eyes, and let the melodies wash over you, the bow moving across strings in gentle arcs, weaving stories without words. The song speaks of home, of lost gardens and hidden rooms, of stars seen from quiet rooftops long ago. Around you, faces soften, and even the youngest children stop their restless movements, drawn into the spell of sound. The music becomes a language beyond words, a balm for wounds that cannot be seen but are deeply felt. It is a reminder of life outside the fences, of a world where beauty still exists even in the smallest forms. Your cousin leans closer, eyes shining with a mix of wonder and gratitude. In that moment, the camp feels less like a prison and more like a fragile refuge, held together by shared moments of grace and courage. The violin's voice carries not only notes but a promise that even in the darkest places the human spirit can find ways to sing. As the music fades into silence, the echo lingers in the air, a soft, persistent reminder that hope is never fully lost. It lives in the quiet spaces between notes, in the hearts of those who listen, and in the courage to hold on to beauty against all odds. In the days that follow the rare gift of music, a subtle yet profound shift begins to take root within the camp's oppressive walls. It is not a grand uprising or loud declaration, but a quieter kind of resistance, woven through secret acts and hidden words. You and your cousin, along with a small circle of trusted friends, become part of this delicate web, a network of messages and stories passed hand to hand, whispered in the shadows and tucked away in the smallest cracks of the barracks. The materials are scarce. There are no books, no pens, only scraps of torn fabric, bits of charcoal and fragments of paper carefully saved from discarded orders or torn from ration packets. Yet, from these meagre supplies, a silent language is born, a collection of coded notes, sketches, and tiny poems written in invisible ink, made from lemon juice or diluted milk. The writing is painstaking, slow, and risky, but each message carries the weight of hope, defiance, and the unyielding human need to connect. You learn to write carefully in the dim light, your fingers trembling as you press the charcoal onto fabric or the edge of paper. The words you choose are simple but charged with meaning, encouragement to hold on, stories of past strength, reminders that the outside world has not forgotten. Sometimes, a message is hidden inside a doll's dress or sewn into the hem of a coat, intended to be discovered by those brave enough to seek them out. One night, after the camp has settled into uneasy silence, you slip a small note beneath a loose floorboard, a message of hope written in your careful, shaky script. It reads, "Even in the darkest soil, seeds of light will grow." The act feels monumental, a tiny rebellion against the relentless silence imposed by fear and oppression. Receiving these hidden messages becomes a lifeline. When your cousin finds a note tucked beneath their pillow, words from another barracks, another child, you both share a quiet smile, a fragile thread of connection reaching across the camp's divide. These notes carry stories of courage, memories of home, and silent vows to survive. They are proof that even here, in this place designed to break spirits, humanity clings stubbornly to life. Sometimes, the messages warn of approaching danger or share news of escapes and acts of kindness by fellow prisoners. Other times, they are poems or drawings, expressions of the soul that refuse to be silenced. Each message, no matter how small, becomes a spark that lights the darkness, weaving a tapestry of resilience and shared strength. In the quiet corners of the barracks, you practice reading and writing these secret words, knowing that each letter is a thread connecting you to a larger story, a story of endurance, memory, and the unbreakable spirit of those who refuse to disappear. The hidden messages carry a power far greater than ink and fabric. They are vessels of hope that flow beneath the surface, waiting to be discovered, cherished, and passed on. Amid the cold nights and harsh days, this quiet network of words becomes a sanctuary. It is a place where you and your friends can be children again, dreaming, imagining, and building a future in the fragile space carved out between fear and hope. The camp's walls may hold you captive, but within your heart and the hidden words, you are free. The winter arrives slowly, creeping in with a sharp chill that pierces the thin walls of the barracks and settles deep into your bones. The cold is relentless, a biting force that seems to seep into every corner of the camp, turning breath into mist and the ground beneath your feet into a frozen, unforgiving surface. Outside, the skies are heavy with grey clouds, and the world feels wrapped in a suffocating silence broken only by the harsh winds that whistle through the barbed wire fences. Inside, the hunger grows sharper with each passing day. The already meagre rations dwindle further, and the brittle crust of bread becomes a precious fought-for commodity. Your stomach aches constantly, a dull, gnawing pain that shadows every moment. Sometimes, the ache becomes so fierce that it feels as though it will hollow you out from the inside. Yet, despite the hunger, you find small ways to share and conserve, passing a scrap here or a crumb there, pooling what little you have to help the youngest or weakest. The cold nights are the hardest. You huddle close with your cousin and the few friends you can trust, sharing the thin blankets, pressing bodies together in a desperate attempt to conserve warmth. The wooden floor is cold and unforgiving, but your shared closeness creates a fragile sanctuary amid the harshness. Outside the barracks, the wind howls like a distant wolf, and the stars seem dimmer, obscured by swirling snow and ice. You watch as the faces around you grow thinner, more fragile, shadows of their former selves etched with exhaustion and pain. There is a quiet resignation in the barracks, a shared understanding that each day is a battle against the elements and the emptiness in your stomachs. But within that resignation, a flicker of determination remains. You remind yourself and others that this winter, like all things, will pass. You cling to memories of warmer days, the secret lessons, the stolen music, the hidden messages, as if they were warm fires burning inside you. Those memories are lifelines, threads of light in the cold darkness. You speak softly with your cousin about gardens you once knew, about the songs you used to sing, about the sky beyond the fences that still holds stars waiting to be seen again. One day, despite the biting cold and the ever-present hunger, you manage to find a small patch of snow-covered earth outside the camp. You kneel there with trembling hands and dig carefully, uncovering a tiny green shoot, fragile, resilient. It feels like a secret gift, a sign that life endures even in the harshest winters. You press the sprout gently to your palm, a symbol of hope and survival. That winter is a test of endurance, a trial by cold and hunger that threatens to break even the strongest. But as the days slowly lengthen and the first hints of thaw appear, you feel a quiet strength growing within. The cold has not defeated you, it has only sharpened the edges of your resilience, carving out a deeper understanding of what it means to survive, not just to exist, but to hold on to hope when all else seems lost. The days begin to stretch differently after the long winter. The cold, though still biting, slowly loosens its grip on the camp. A fragile light seeps into the sky earlier each morning, pale and hesitant but undeniably present. The snow melts into muddy earth, and small puddles form where ice once held sway, reflecting the grey sky like broken mirrors. You notice the air carries a subtle change, a restless energy, as if the world beyond the fences is stirring awake from a long nightmare. Whispers move through the barracks like a cautious breeze, rumours of approaching armies, of liberation, of an end to this endless suffering. These words are spoken quietly, sometimes doubted, sometimes clung to as precious hope. The guards grow more uneasy, their once rigid control loosens, their patrols less frequent and more disorganised. The camp itself seems to hold its breath, waiting for something beyond its dark boundaries. You and your cousin watch the horizon, searching for signs, your hearts beating in a mixture of fear, anticipation, and disbelief. Each morning brings new stories from those who dare to hope, that soldiers have been seen marching closer, that distant guns fire in a rhythm of freedom, that the nightmare may finally be ending. One dawn, a distant rumble breaks the silence, low and steady, growing louder with each passing moment. It is not the familiar sound of boots or commands, but the mechanical roar of engines, the thunder of wheels on gravel. The camp awakens in a ripple of murmurs and wide eyes. The soldiers arrive, not the menacing figures of before, but faces marked with kindness, relief, and respect. You step outside, the cold air sharp against your skin, and see them, the liberators, moving through the camp with careful hands and warm words. Their presence is surreal, a dream you never dared to imagine. You feel a strange mixture of joy and disbelief, the weight of years pressing down even as hope blossoms. Families are reunited, tears flow freely, and stories of survival spill out in trembling voices. The barracks no longer feel like prisons, but spaces where memories were forged in fire. The faces around you, worn but alive, carry the unspoken stories of pain and courage. You and your cousin stand among the crowd, eyes wide, hearts pounding with the overwhelming flood of freedom. The sky above is vast and open, and for the first time in what feels like forever, you breathe deeply, air that tastes of new beginnings. Though the journey ahead remains uncertain, and the scars of the past run deep, this moment marks a turning point. It is a fragile dawn after a long, dark night, a chance to reclaim life, to heal, and to remember. The camp, once a place of relentless darkness and despair, now hums with a cautious, fragile hope. Liberation has arrived, but the air remains heavy, not just with the cold, but with the weight of what has been endured and what still lies ahead. You and your cousin move through the transformed space with slow, tentative steps, as if the world has changed overnight yet still feels unfamiliar and fragile beneath your feet. The barracks, once prisons of suffering, are now filled with soft murmurs and quiet sobs. Survivors gather in small clusters, their faces etched with exhaustion, disbelief, and a tentative yearning for something new. You see eyes searching for lost family members, hands reaching out to comfort strangers who have become comrades through shared hardship. There is a delicate tension between relief and sorrow, between the instinct to move forward and the need to pause and remember. You walk toward the open fields beyond the fences, where the sky stretches wide and endless. The wind carries a chill, but it feels different, freer, less biting. You kneel on the earth, cold and rough beneath your hands, and let your fingers trace the soil as if trying to draw strength from the ground itself. Here, in the quiet aftermath, you feel the full weight of survival. Not just your own, but the stories of all those who did not make it. Memories rise unbidden, the secret lessons whispered in the shadows, the stolen music that lifted weary spirits, the hidden messages of hope tucked away in the smallest places. Each memory is a thread woven into the fabric of your being, a testament to resilience in the face of overwhelming darkness. You think of your lost friend, the boy who shared his laughter and bread, and you carry his memory like a flame, refusing to let it fade. You remember the tiny green shoot found in the frozen earth, a symbol of life that endured even in the harshest winter. These fragments of the past mingle with the promise of the future, fragile yet unbreakable. As the sun dips low, casting a soft, golden light across the fields, you sit beside your cousin and watch the horizon together. The world feels vast and uncertain, but for the first time in a long while, it also feels full of possibility. The journey of healing will be slow and difficult, but you carry within you a quiet strength, a strength born of survival, memory, and the enduring human spirit. In this moment, the night no longer feels quite so dark. The shadows retreat gently, giving way to a fragile dawn where hope, however tentative, begins to bloom anew. Thank you for staying with this story, for walking through these moments of hardship, resilience, and hope. The journey we've shared is heavy, but also full of quiet strength, a reminder of the courage that lives within us even in the darkest times. Now, as you rest, may the calm of night wrap around you gently, carrying you toward peaceful dreams. Let the stories of survival and light linger softly in your mind, a quiet comfort until morning comes. Sleep well, and may you find rest and renewal.